a simple guide to data management principles for everyone. This presentation is an excerpt from a presentation given at the ITWeb Cloud conference in 2018 and has been edited for relevance.
I believe that data is fundamental to business. You know, we get with the term data-driven. Has anybody heard that? It gets used for analytics, data-driven analytics. But I'd like to challenge anybody in any business, I don't care what size you are, to switch off the data in your business and then see what happens. We're all data-driven all the time. So what tends to happen when we talk about data to the average business executive or business person, if we're really lucky, they'll be thinking about this. Business intelligence. We want to get some reports out. That typically is what most people think about when they talk to IT people about data. So what often happens is they say, we want to report, we want to do BI, so we go and buy a tool. I'm not going to name any vendors. It doesn't matter. We go and buy a tool and we get the report that we think we want, with or without much business involvement and engagement in defining the process. But what they're actually missing is there's a whole host of activity that you have to deliver as the BI team in order to deliver that report. All right? And I'm going to touch on these. I'm not going to go into them in a great deal of detail because I don't want to bore you all. And what I want to say before I cover this slide in more detail is what often happens is we get the budget to do this. We don't get the budget or the focus to deliver the rest of the stuff. We have to do it anyway. So what happens is you end up doing all of the stuff, but you do it in a very ad hoc, badly planned, badly documented, non-repeatable way. All right. So let me touch very quickly on how I use this slide and this is my framework that we've been using successfully. I said to you, if you're an IT person, you're the CIO, you're the Chief Information Security Officer, whatever your role might be, you tend to govern this entire enterprise information management environment through this capability within your business, data architecture. So the data architecture of the guys that says, what systems do we have talking to each other in order to move data, to deliver data, to manage data? So very simplistically, that's what data architecture is about. Okay, and this is probably a 5 or 6 day presentation in its own right. So I'm not going to cover it in any kind of detail. Part of what you deliver with data architecture is you say, what does my data look like? These are ER diagrams, right? My entity relationship diagrams. Where is my data? What does it look like? What is metadata? It's my least favorite word in the entire planet, because the definition is data about data, which means absolutely at any time you're talking about a description of something, an attribute name, the length of a column. It doesn't matter what it is, it's metadata. So when we're having an argument now about whether we're doing metadata or not, you could be right and I could be wrong, and we both think we're talking about the same thing and we're talking about something completely different. But metadata is how do we document what our data looks like? And the banks in particular at the moment are being driven by compliance to start to understand what this environment looks like. But it's a massive challenge for us. How do we maintain when we've got 1,600 systems, we've got customer data sitting in 1,000 systems, when we want to do analysis and ask the question of how much profit are we making, what's our churn in a telco environment, we don't know the definition of a customer. We don't know what the definition of a churn is. We get 5 different reports. That's why this is important, all right? We then get into data security. And I'm just going to use it at a very simple level. Who should have access to this data in this report and who should not have access to this data in this report? Data integration, how do we all the data into the same place? And there's an element of dependency from this. But this is largely driven, my judgment, by the CIO. It should be owned by him and his team. All right? We might build a data warehouse. We might not, depending on the complexity of our data. What's the data warehouse doing? It's giving me the ability to run highly structured queries to answer very specific sets of questions against highly optimized data sets. That can do really big stuff really quickly, but it doesn't give me flexibility. Because once I built that scheme and I built those structures, I'm kind of stuck with that set of questions that I thought I knew I wanted to answer, and it took me 18 months to get there. But it's necessary. So now what I'm coming to is, if you're a business person, I believe that this is where you should get the same window into this environment. What is data governance? It's this horrible word, all right? But data governance for me is that it's the vehicle by which business prioritizes and links the data management world into their business priorities. It's not about control, it's about prioritization. One of the mistakes we often make, there's a classic example that gets used for metadata management. It says, how do we get to the single definition of the customer? Well, there is no single definition of a customer in most organizations. But how do we recognize from a business perspective that we need to have 4 different decisions? We get asked often at conferences like this by the BI people, we want to move data into the cloud as an example, and the lawyers are telling us, no, can we do it? Well, actually, it's neither the lawyer's decision nor the BI people's decision to make. It's the CEO's decision driven down through his channels, and it should be driven here through policies, which in turn influence all of these other things. Data governance gives me data quality that says the content of my data is kind of good enough. That's what it means, really, at simplistic level, all right? And if I have quality data and I have governance, then you can start to deliver master data management. If you try to deliver master data management without these 2 things, all you're doing is integrating data, bad quality data typically. Okay? Bad in, bad out. So I've got big data up here as a block, but it actually isn't just one block. Big data is a combination of all of these things. It's just applying it to this unstructured, highly moving, complex data and allowing me to do it quickly, typically through the use of platforms like Hadoop. All right? So I could have taken out my data warehouse and said, we'll use Hadoop, and we'll do our analytics in an unstructured environment, in a data lake type environment. Should Hadoop always replace your data warehouse? No, they do different jobs. They do different jobs. Can Hadoop replace your data warehouse? Well, there are companies, Sears is an example in the US, that have said we're going to switch off the data warehouse and we're going to replace it with Hadoop. Pros and cons. It's not indexed. It's not going to give you the high performance for those queries. It doesn't give you drill downs. There's a whole bunch of, I'm not going to go into all the details of it. They're doing different jobs. But it replaces some of your data integration layers. It's got its own data security processes, etc. So your architecture, when you're thinking about your architecture, needs to be encompassing thinking about all of these capabilities. You're just applying it in this environment to a cloud environment, or you're applying it to a Hadoop environment. Okay? And as Willie touched on, your cloud may not be external. It might be private cloud, public cloud, a combination of the 2. How many of you have got data sitting outside of your organization already? At Telcom, or at IS, or at... that you know about. All right? And secondly, when we start talking big data, we start talking about bringing together structured and unstructured data, internal and external data. So big data might use my data warehouse as a source. It might pull data, structured data from my warehouse, combine it with my web logs or other unstructured data sets, and it might push data back into my data warehouse. So I need to be thinking about where am I going to put this.
Thank you for watching. Please visit our website at masterdata.co.za to learn more about our data management approach. And please like and subscribe for more data management tips,